again. Hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa, ni hao jambo, marhaba. It's time for the Arms Inquisition yet again. Episode 316 on Sunday, the 11th of February, 2024. I'm Phil.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Matt.
And we're very happy to be joined once again by Dan Stevens. How you doing, Dan?
Hi guys, thanks for the invitation. Thanks for letting me back on again. I think it's the second time now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Have you dug up any ancient corpses since the last time you were on?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Can't find them, can you?
Still in the same position
Oh,
as we
this
were
is-
before. So,
There's no history before 1975. I remember now.
That's not what we're talking about today, though, is it?
yeah, you remember?
Yes, I remember.
Yeah,
yes.
hidden history we were talking about, and who's really running the show? How long have we been here? And why can we not find any large-scale evidence of human remains before 1700?
Yeah. What? I wonder what episode. I should, if I was on the ball, I would know the episode number so people could check that out, go back and listen to it.
233.
Oh, 233. Right, okay.
There you go.
Well, you've done some. Where are you now? What are you on now?
316.
316.
It was about a year
2
ago, I
years
think,
ago.
weren't it? I thought it was about a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so check out that if you want to delve into hidden history. But tonight, you've been tweeting a lot about geoengineering and what's going on in the skies and other subjects like that. So, and it's not something we've talked about really, only sort of glancing blows here and there. So, yeah, I thought that would be a good thing to get your opinion on and see what you think's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, geoengineering, because I didn't really pay much attention to it initially. Through 2016, 2017, you'd hear a little bit about kind of chemtrails and, people that were talking about chemtrails were crazy, typically American, and we wasn't seeing anything really like it so much in the UK, or certainly not on the scale that seems to have been happening in America.
Is that because we're
So I
more
think the issue is
sensible over here, Dad? Or
Yeah, I think the issue is that what people were seeing in America and other parts of the world wasn't necessarily what we were seeing in the UK. What we're seeing now is massive grids and crosses sprayed in the sky that are clearly not condensation trails. But obviously, people were seeing that in the United States. We were being told they were crazy, and obviously we thought they were because we wasn't seeing what they were seeing. And if we wasn't seeing anything abnormal to the extent that they was, then why would we be questioning it?
Yeah.
So I at the time I was kind of probably have gone down a few more rabbit holes now than I had then. And my view is that if people that were talking about pyramids and aliens and ancient machining and Atlantis wasn't talking about chemtrails, then it must be crazy, because if these big conspiracy type truth accounts weren't talking about it, then surely if there was something in it, then they would have been picking this up as well. And what I suspect now is that some of those bigger accounts are deliberately talking about everything but geoengineering. So yeah, I started paying attention to it purely because my background was cycling. I'd got involved in a doping scandal. I'd sponsored pro cycling teams. We'd competed at the highest level, and most of my kind of teenage, younger years was spent on a bike doing 4 or 5 hour rides up to kind of 70 to 100 miles. So I know the weather. If you're sitting on a bike outside in the countryside for 4 or 5 hours every day, you kind of get an idea of what's going on with wind and rain and clouds and weather forecasts and all that kind of stuff. So I really noticed a change in the weather and what was going on throughout the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I'd seen things that just seemed a little bit strange. Like we'd do a certain ride where it was kind of 40 miles in one direction, and you turn around and ride the way you'd headed out, and you'd have a headwind in both directions, which we'd never seen before.
That's strange.
did the wind not just change direction?
So what's happening with the geoengineering is that they're operating a process of solar radiation management where they're spraying particles in the sky to reflect the sunlight. So what you see is changes in high and low pressure, and you're sort of seeing downward air shifts, which is causing winds coming down rather than blowing left or right or north, south, whatever it was. So you kind of getting these circular headwinds where, something's, blocking the heat out from above, and you get a sudden sort of, cold pressure comes in, which isn't coming in from kind of weather movement. It's coming in from like something's being placed, like an umbrella's being placed above you. So that hot air that's now been blocked has to move and has to go somewhere, which is why you see an abnormal winds. And if you look at the weather this week, I think it was super windy Sunday. I was in Midlands on Sunday. On Monday and Tuesday, the skies were relatively clear, and they were laying down a lot of these grids and doing the spraying. Come Wednesday, the skies were overcast, really grey. And then Thursday, Friday, you get torrential rain. I've been out walking the dog this morning, and most of the fields where I am are completely flooded, like we've never seen it before. And this is a night, 2 days worth of rain.
Something I've noticed this winter particularly, people keep telling me how shit and wet it's been. That it seems unnaturally wet.
Without a doubt. Making it rain. And so I started tweeting about this to really, like, I think most people that follow my account regularly know that I'm not really on Twitter to sort of get attention or really even to share my thoughts. What I'm using Twitter for is to gauge the response from the bots. So I'll put posts out, and I'll look at what bot comments you get for those posts, and it's the bot comments that legitimize this. And my Twitter account grew because I was involved in this doping scandal, and then it was suddenly shadow banned. And what I saw through the pandemic was certain tweets on certain subjects were getting boosted, although the account was shadow banned. I'd see one post, for example, asked why vaccines are a risk to why I think the tweet was, why are the unvaccinated a risk to the vaccinated? Right. So on a shadow banned account, which was getting 2 or 3 or 4 likes, that suddenly got, I think it's 4,000 or 5,000 likes.
Wow.
Overnight.
Is this
so that was clearly boosted. So what they were doing is boosting this. And obviously while this was going on, I was looking at the weather and thinking, well, the weather was a bit strange. And certain sort of, I've been joining dots on certain activity on Twitter, especially around the bots, especially around sickness, respiratory infections, myocarditis, asthma, nasal polyps, loss of smell. And all of these symptoms seem to be coming from something that's been sprayed in the air. And you can very easily link that to the PCR tests, where they were using a forensic test that wasn't designed to diagnose a virus, but was designed to collect samples. And they were sticking them down the back end of everyone's nose before the aeroplanes were downed, and then again after the aeroplanes were downed. And you can start looking at timelines as well. So mask mandates were never enforced until the end of June 2020.
Yeah.
Right. Within a week of them enforcing those face masks, they then put the planes back in the sky. So by then we were already 6 months into a pandemic.
What's the rationale for that?
Down the aircraft.
What's the rationale for bringing the mask mandate in?
Well, they knew what they were going to be spraying when they put the planes back in the sky.
But do you think that they think the masks did anything?
Yeah. I think they knew. They suspected that the particles they were spraying would cause health problems once they put the planes back in the sky. But what they needed to do before they upped this geoengineering campaign is to remove the planes for a period of 3 or 4 months and then collect control data. So they created a global set of control data of what people's nasal cavities would look like before they'd done the spraying. And then they put the planes back in the sky, changed your road layouts, put blue dots on the floor to keep you looking down, not up.
Don't remind
Told you
me
to
of all this
social
shit.
distance. Yeah. Then got you all wearing face masks, and then carried on with the PCR tests, and that was collecting data once the spraying started. What they did is they increased the spraying incrementally, week on week, while they were collecting data through the PCR tests via the yellow card reporting system. And they used the truth movement to put the fear of God into the vaccinated, because they and the COVID people who didn't get vaccinated, who thought they had COVID, to report their symptoms on the yellow card reporting system. Yeah. And then by December, they rolled out the vaccine and then told everyone they'd be getting vaccine damages. So I think what they've done is they've wholesale created the pandemic to down the planes, to clear the skies, to then put the planes back in the sky. And what people have done is they've lost track of what the sky looked like when they downed the planes. Because when you talk to people about COVID, they say, oh, well, the sky was really clean, really clear in lockdown when the planes weren't in the sky. Oh, yeah. When they put the planes back in the sky, it looks really different. Well, no, what's happened is you've forgotten what it looked like for those 3 or 4 months. And then when they've returned to the sky, things then look slightly different. So I don't think things were clearer through COVID. And I've checked a lot of my pictures, like we as everyone did through COVID in lockdowns, you started a new hobby. We started flying drones. So I got loads of GoPro footage and, video footage, etc., taken from drones, and the skies weren't clear. So, you put things out on Twitter and people reply to you, and a lot of them are bots, but I got sent a link for 2 documents dated 2009, right? One of these documents was the House of Commons report on the regulation of geoengineering. Yeah, okay. That was dated in 2010. So in 2010, the House of Commons created a report after a meeting at the Royal Institution that was discussing the naming of geoengineering and what you'd classify as geoengineering. So the Royal Institution report was very clear in terms of it saying that the definition of geoengineering in one instance is solar radiation management. And solar radiation management is described in the Royal Institution report as a process of spraying particles into the sky to block out the sun. So what they want to do is spray aluminium, similar particles into the sky through stratospheric aerosol spraying, which has got thousands and thousands of patents to support the technology, right? The Royal Institution report has got all of the backlinks to all of the experiments done on this. So the Royal Institution was defining what geoengineering is. So it's a process of cloud thinning, stratospheric aerosol spraying, and CO2 removal. A year later, the House of Commons writes a report called The Regulation of Geoengineering. So here we are, 2009, House of Commons, the Royal Institution defined what geoengineering is. In 2010, the House of Commons write a report to regulate that activity. Yeah. So if that was a conspiracy theory and this stratospheric aerosol spraying isn't happening, why would the House of Commons be looking to regulate it?
Yeah, because we know from history that politicians tend to act after the event rather than in advance of.
Yeah, yeah. So when you dig deeper, you'll find a article in the Telegraph and the Daily Mail that is based on the disclosure of freedom of information data, where the RAF killed 35 people in a village in Devon through weather modification experiments.
I've heard this story.
What they were doing is running experiments to make it rain. The rain caused a massive flood, flooded the village, killed 35 people.
Yeah, I've just pulled up the House of Commons. It's, if anyone wants to look it up, it's House of Commons Science and Technology Committee, and it's titled The Regulation of Geoengineering. Yeah. 5th report, 2000. Yeah.
So,
so the patents, like I found patents for the aircraft guidance systems, And if you once you get the gist of what the lingo is here, so what you've got is the Discovery Channel, History Channel, you know, Science Channel, BBC, saying everyone's crazy because it's chemtrails, chemtrails, chemtrails. So if you go off and Google patents for chemtrails, obviously nothing's going to come up. But if you start searching for the, you know, the bullshit bingo buzzwords in this, and you say, look for phrases like CO2 removal, stratospheric aerosol spraying, solar radiation management, guidance systems of solar radiation management, aircraft radar technology, and all of these kind of things that you need to get the aircraft in the right location at the right time at the right altitude, you'll find them all. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and they date back to as early as 1930.
So I was just trying to ask then, is this all related to global warming, climate change catastrophe, basically?
Yeah, well, the House of Commons report is really interesting because it refers to the Royal Institution report pretty much all the way through the document. So they've onboarded the brains to work on this tech through the climate hoax. So what they're saying is that the world is obviously getting warmer. You guys are top scientists. You're not questioning your peers in the same universities you're in. You're not going to question the academia, but you've got the know-how and the intelligence and the capabilities to work on these cloud seeding and weather modification experiments. So you've got a group of academics and scientists and institutions working on this on the belief that the climate issues are as we're told. Now, obviously, if they're not, you know, something else is going on here with this stuff that they're spraying into the sky. But the issue, the core issue here is that you're right in what you're saying, Matt, that everything's being done under the pretext of CO2. Yeah. And CO2 removal. So the reports both go into detail on how that is being done and the methodology. But the key here is cloud thinning, cloud creation, and the process is stratospheric aerosol spraying. And the reference point that they refer to in terms of the science and the motivation for the science, they refer to the Icelandic volcano ash cloud, which cooled the Earth. So they're referring to a global ash cloud, one of the biggest ash clouds in our history, that clearly demonstrated that it could reduce the temperature. They're referring to increased temperatures, and they make a number of points on how they want to replicate that ash cloud. Yeah. And the period that they want to do this up to is the year 2100. So this is a long-term project. And within that document, what they say, and they're very clear on this, is that this is a global experiment that's never been done before. Not once do they refer to the damage it could cause to human health, ever. They mention in one of the reports that they surveyed a number of Japanese civilians, a proportion of Japanese society, and they asked them whether experiments on weather manipulation would be a positive thing. And obviously, all the Japanese guys in this survey said, yeah, of course it would. And in their mind, they're probably thinking, I'd love to have a sunny, bright, clear, rainless day every day. But of course, the reality is very different. What they're doing is weather modification to produce something that looks very much like the Icelandic ash cloud that completely blocks out the sun, that generates rain. And of course, when they went back to these civilians and said, well, you agree that it would be a positive if we develop this technology. Would it be a positive if we actually started rolling out this technology now? All of them said, no, absolutely not. Don't mess with the weather. So they know that the public won't allow them to mess with the weather. So that's your starting point. One thing the bots will say is, Dan, you're crazy, mate. This has been going on since the 60s, since the 70s. You know, Richard Ashcroft has written music about this. Prince has spoken about this. Lana Del Rey named a new album that was released just as the pandemic kicked off, mentioning chemtrail. I think it's called Chemtrails Over the Country Club. But of course, that work is the R&D level stuff. That's lower level.
Lana Del Rey,
more
she works
regional.
in R&D.
What's that? Say
Lana Del Rey works in R&D. Is she just the public face? Is this what do they call it, where you sort of drip feed the messaging out?
I think it's probably called predictive programming.
Yeah.
And what has been going on with the chemtrails and what some of the bots do is say, well, this has been going on for years. So when you start talking about COVID being a cover story for a global rollout of a geoengineering campaign that was discussed and regulated in 2010, what the bots say is, no, it can't be anything to do with COVID because this has been going on for years and years and years. But of course, that activity is the research and development activity that then allows you to roll it out on a global basis at a later date. Now, the reports are clear. They say that to lower global temperatures, you need to roll it out on a global basis. So it's a global experiment.
Right. You mentioned that the public won't go for this. I just
Absolutely
wonder.
not.
I wonder. Give it another 10 years. It seems like the younger generation are a bit more disturbed in their view of the risk of global climate warming change, and maybe they would go for it if they pump the fear up enough. You know,
it's becoming pretty clear that a large proportion of this sort of truth movement are now realizing that the CO2 thing is a bit of a hoax. What do we produce? Humans produce 1% of 99% of the CO2 released globally. So to argue that CO2 emissions are a thing and it's contributing to the change in temperature, you've got to prove that the 99% that we're not producing, is then being changed by the 1% that we are producing.
Yeah, 1%.
So the argument's a complete non-starter before it's even begun, which is why you're seeing puppets like John Kerry, being paraded around in these NATO meetings to try and sell the climate change hoax.
Yeah, I come to the view that it's more of a scam, more of a monetary scam than anything. Like people like Kerry, it's because they've got so much money riding on it, and they want to bring in this carbon tax system.
Yeah,
where you are the carbon they want to reduce.
So the irony here is that we suspect the climate change thing is a bit of a non-starter, right? They've onboarded the brains to deal with the geoengineering on the basis that they need to change the climate. But of course, the climate doesn't need changing, but they're changing the climate. So while they're changing the climate, they're telling us we're changing the climate as they're changing the climate.
Why do they want to change the climate?
That is a good question, because if they're selling this through Royal Institution report, through House of Commons report, and they're banding around climate change, global temperatures are increasing, we want to reduce the temperatures, why are these people so hell-bent on trying to reduce the temperatures? What's going on?
I don't get it. I don't know. What?
So something else is going on.
Right. Yeah.
And if something else is going on, it would make sense that we'd start seeing cracks in the cover story. We'd start seeing cracks in vaccines. And vaccine injuries. If you Google vaccine, COVID vaccine, and the word saline, you'll see that every single country has run a story to say that their population, or a proportion of their population, was injected with a saline solution.
Yeah.
So that's getting ahead of the story. It's kind of a limited hangout, but in reverse, because you don't need to do that yet. But if it ever came out that these vaccines weren't the thing that was causing injuries, and what is causing heart disease, what is causing respiratory problems, what is causing the rise of asthma, what is causing an increase in issues like nasal polyps, what is causing people to lose their smell, what is causing people to lose their taste, is the toxic crap they're spraying in the sky. And you're not telling anyone that you're doing that. Before you do that, you need to create the perception of those issues already being in place. And while you're creating the perception of those issues already being in place, which you're doing by saying that flu has disappeared, but obviously the flu you might have could be worse than you think it is, but the flu you don't have could also be really, really bad. That's how you group like society together to get this pre-spraying data through the PCR tests. You know, the PCR test is clearly not designed to detect viruses, is it?
Well, the inventor of it said that.
Yeah. But what it is designed to do is swab a sample and then see what's on that swab. So if you're about to run a global geoengineering operation, the thing you need to do is get an idea of what society looked like en masse all over the world before you run that experiment. So imagine the scenario here, right? I say to Matt, I've got a cunning plan, right? We're going to make millions out of this because we know we can't run endless wars anymore because everyone's got an idea of what's going on. And we're kind of running out of countries to invade. So we want a new racket, and we want to use the military industrial complex's resources to run this racket, right? Now, this racket is basically us blocking out the clouds, blocking out the sun. So I've got no idea what it's going to do to everyone, but I'm going to run it globally, and it might poison everyone.
Well, how much money are we going to make?
Yeah, how much?
How do you think we're going to tell him we're going to do it, mate?
We're going to pretend there's something else going on. Slip it in there.
Misdirection.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, one of the other problems we've got is we need to collect a PCR sample from everyone all over the world before we start doing this geoengineering experiment. How do we tell them to go and get a PCR test without telling them we're doing the experiment? And then when we do the experiment, we also need to get more PCR tests because we're going to increase it incrementally based on what they can barely tolerate.
Have you guys put together a business case for this? Because I think you've missed a step here. What's the point?
Oh, by the way, a few people might die.
Make the money.
How?
How much did the UK government borrow in 2020?
Well, it's not really how much they borrowed. It's where they sent the money to.
That's what I mean. Yeah, to contractors.
So who received all the money? How much money have Ukraine? So if you're running a covert geoengineering program under the cover of a global pandemic, right, and you then inject everyone with a saline solution, right, would it make sense to then launder all the taxpayers' money through organizations like Pfizer, like Moderna? Would you then create a fake war in Ukraine, launder all the money through, just give all your money to Ukraine? Get America to just give all their money to Ukraine? Ukraine can then funnel that into the funds you need to run a global geoengineering operation.
Well, the way it works.
So what you've got going on here, your business plan, Ben, is this. You've got to pay for a global geoengineering operation. It just so happens that as this pandemic kicks off, a load of money headed in the direction of Ukraine.
Why are we running a global geoengineering operation again?
Because the House of Commons 10 you.
It sounds very expensive. What's the
Well,
point?
the reason we're running it is because the House of Commons have told you that they need to run it.
Well, why?
Because they've given you a report called the House of Commons Science and Technology Report on the regulation of geoengineering.
On the basis of we have to prevent global climate warming
Yeah.
change.
And that report refers to all the patents and experiments that have already been done on that.
Okay, and will it
Yeah.
prevent global climate warming change?
Well, does it need to? Like, the fact is, they're telling you it's going to, and what seems to be happening at the moment is the reverse. The climate's actually getting warmer. What was it today? 14 degrees? End of first week, second week in February, wherever we are.
It doesn't sound like a very good idea to me. And I still don't
No.
get the point.
No, which is why the public wouldn't accept it, would they?
So I do it.
But they are doing it. You
Just
know, we can see it in
because
the skies.
They've got nothing else to do.
They're telling you they're doing it. Bill Gates has already said he's put 100 million into it.
Yeah, he wants to block the sun out. Bill Gates. He said it.
You know, Bill Gates has just given you a check for 100 million. You know, in this faux business meeting that we're running here, right? You know, I suppose I'd say to Ben, you know, do we think this is going on, given that you're now sitting on a check for 100 mil specifically for the purpose of this operation?
I'm already thinking
Yes or no?
100 mil's not enough.
We need
No,
more.
More. I need more.
So do we? Yeah. So do we? You know, like you. I think I'm not sure I spoke to you guys about this, but I spoke to Sonia Poulton on this. Fashion forecasting is run wholesale by a company called WGSN, right? In 2018, WGSN were forecasting high street colours for the summer, for the spring of 2020. Yeah. So in 2018, WGSN published the two key colours for spring of 2020. One was mint green and the other one was sky blue.
Scrubs.
2 years before we run out of PPE.
Oh, yeah.
In 2021, the colours forecast by WGSN
Yellow.
in the year 2019 were blue and yellow. So in 2018, they forecasted mint green and sky blue, which just as a coincidence happens to be the colours of PPE.
Yeah.
And then for the following summer, they basically forecast the colours of the Ukrainian flag.
What have they forecast for this year?
It's all earth colours, military,
Aluminium
beige,
grey.
Khaki and
yeah,
navy
khaki.
blue.
And also
Wonderful.
red is forecast for now. You can Google it. If you just Google WGSM, if you just Google purist blue and neo mint, spring 2020, you'll see the two colours.
What actually is WGSM? Is it like
They're
an
behind it
international?
all. That's the they we're talking
It's
about.
the they.
WGSN are owned by The Guardian. WGSN are part of the same
Guardian?
news group that's owned by The Guardian.
Right.
Yeah. So when you go to your local shopping centre and you see that like New Look and I don't know, Zara and Uniqlo and you know, these other brands are all carrying exactly the same colours, that's because they are just following well forecasted colours. If you've got any friends or relatives that are a fashion a student at any of the universities, they get given a WGSN log-on. WGSN charge about £800 a month for their forecasting service if you set up a clothing brand.
And
so they seed it into the students, they give it to them for free, they build it into academia, and then they roll it out through you know, through the commercial world.
And that pays
So
for chemtrails.
that's owned by the Guardian news group.
who decides the colours then? How do they get decided though?
Well, they say that they've got complex algorithms that monitors the catwalk and the news and everything else.
Right.
And
okay.
and what Virgil Abloh is designing ends up, you know, 2 years later. So obviously, if you're planning a war in Ukraine or you're planning a pandemic, you could just seed it to Vivienne Westwood, get her to stick those colours on there. You see what I'm saying? A few years ahead of time. Obviously, she's dead now, so she wouldn't be up for it. But you get the gist of what I'm saying, yeah. You're living in a wholesale controlled world
What
where
about,
your thoughts are not your own. It's crazy.
are they, Dan, actually turning the frogs gay?
Are they what?
Are they turning the frogs gay?
I don't know. I think they're trying to turn everyone gay, aren't they?
Well, that was kind of where I was going. Do you think there's any gender bending side to this?
It's all, mate. It's all bullshit. It's all distraction. It's all distraction. You know, and they'll see this sort of crap out there to people like John Mappin, and he'll feed it through into about like link it to QAnon and all this kind of crap. It is all distraction. Yeah, all of this stuff with you know, people getting microchipped and reverse engineering UFOs and aliens building pyramids. Like it's all distraction. The only thing that really matters that is you appear to be living through a real life, basically a real life terraforming project.
Speaking of distraction,
and when you simmer this down to what they're doing, what if you define what terraforming is? It's changing the climate. Simple as that.
I'm still sat here at the table with my $100 million. I still don't know what's going on.
That went a long time ago. That went a long time ago. But you see it. You know, you look at this stuff, and if you sit outside in a field, you can literally see them doing it. You know, I'm kind of lucky because I've had some time on my hands, but I sat down with a head teacher of a private school recently. Really intelligent guy. And I said, do you know what that is in the sky? And he went, yeah, it's the exhaust fumes of an aeroplane.
Contrail, yeah.
Well, okay, well, where's Greta at the moment? Why isn't, if that's the exhaust fumes of an aeroplane, why are we not talking about this in the context of saving the environment? And he went, good thinking. I was like, well, I'll tell you now, it's not the exhaust fumes of an aeroplane. What it is, and what they say it is that aeroplane is flying at between 20 to 30,000 feet, right? At 20 to 30,000 feet is between -40 and -60 degrees. So the engines on that plane are piping hot. And as they hit that air at -40 or -60 degrees, that produces condensation, right? In the same way your kettle produces condensation or a hot bath produces condensation. That condensation freezes in the air and leaves a trail, and that's called a condensation trail, right? Okay. That's exactly what we all used to sit there looking at when we were kids. They were maybe, you know, from our kind of ground-based perspective, they were maybe a water vapor that was perhaps, you know, to us it looked like 3, 4, 5 inches long, maybe. What you didn't see when you were a child is they went from horizon to horizon. They were followed up with 5 or 6 other planes who then turned around and sprayed a grid pattern going in the other direction that stayed there and dispersed into a cloud that's supported by radar activity where you can see that what they're doing in the air, looking at the radar tracks of these planes, that then turns the whole sky grey and caused it to piss down with rain for a good day or two afterwards. And then when that rain clouds start clearing, you see the cracks in the clouds, you can see how much they've gone to town above the clouds. Once they've got the grey cloud cover, they absolutely smash it.
Do you think the pilots know what they're doing?
No, this is not. It isn't. Look, have you ever flown to Edinburgh? I'm not sure. You guys, whereabouts are you guys based?
Mordor.
Mordor.
Lancashire.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm in the southeast, so I can fly from London Stansted to Edinburgh, and you literally take off and you land.
Yeah.
It's like a 45-minute flight, right? Mm-hmm. That's including getting off the ground, getting up to speed, and then landing. So you're only up to full speed for a short time. These is it 787s travel at 580 mile an hour. They've got a flight range of 7,000 miles on a commercial basis, carrying passengers. So you could fly up and down the UK at that speed. Like from Land's End to John O'Groats is 600 miles. Right, doing 500 mile an hour, you could fly up and down the UK on a 7,000 mile tank pretty much for 10 or 12 hours straight. Yeah. If you had a fleet of 25 or 45 of these aircraft just going up and down, up and down, up and down, or circling in a figure of 8, that is all you'd need. And what you see when you look at these Telegram groups where people are posting these pictures, they're all posting pictures that what look like there's loads and loads and loads of planes. Well, there isn't. You don't need loads and loads of planes. You only need a fleet of 30 to 40 planes flying figure of 8 patterns over the UK.
On that basis, the pilots must know then, because they're not going
no,
from
because
one
they're
direction.
Military pilots
Right.
or drones. You don't need you. So one of the bullshit cover stories that the bots perpetrate is that, do you think the entire commercial airline industry is on in this? Like, wicked. Well done, Mr. Bot. No, you're a prick. I'm not saying that. You're trying to make it look like I'm saying that. You know very well that that's not going on, which is exactly why you're saying that is going on. And it's exactly why you're saying, I think that's going on. No, it's military or drones. And it's happening in regional areas, in batches. You see them doing it when you look at the radar patterns, they look much like a tractor driving up and down in a field. And what you're seeing on these spraying lines, at the end of a line, it kind of bears off at a 45-degree angle, almost as if it's a J. So when you look at the farmer tracks in the fields and they do a U-turn, if they're doing a U-turn to the right and the turning circle won't allow them to do that, they've got to turn left before they go right to increase the size of the turning circle, right? So what you're seeing is these chemtrails go, and then you see a 45-degree bend, and then they stop. They switch it off, do a U-turn, and fly parallel back along the same line. Now, you think that's 2 aircraft. And it's not. It's the same aircraft.
What are they spraying, and where does that go in the plane? Like the tanks?
Well, in the patents, what they say in some of the patents, they're spraying aluminium. So the aluminium creates a fake ice cloud that then allows water to bond with it. In some instances in the patents, they're saying they're spraying nothing but salt.
You still got to get it up there though, and that's a
so this is, like when you spray your Lynx deodorant out of
I
your.
do not use Lynx deodorant, sir. Not fair.
But you get a lot of sprays out of it. So what's happening here is this is a chemical activity that's causing water to bond with it through an artificial process. Yeah. What they're not doing is landing on the runway, opening up the cargo bay, and picking up a box full of fake clouds and then kicking them out the back of the aeroplane.
That seems like the most sensible way to do it, though.
What they're doing is spraying a chemical compound out of the back of the plane that causes a reaction that mirrors the reaction you'd get when nature is building a cloud. So the particles they're using are designed to attract water vapor, which is already in the air.
Just looking at an article from CNBC, and they're talking about using silver iodide spraying out the back of the plane.
Yeah.
That's
Do you remember what QAnon was saying? Buy gold, buy gold, buy gold. In 2020, right? Look at the price of silver in 2020. Yeah, it skyrockets up. Now, if that's not supported by the price of gold, then it looks a bit suspect if someone's buying all the silver. And this aluminium remarkably does the same thing. So at the same time, you get this conspiracy coming out talking about Jazara and all this kind of stuff and gold-based fiat currencies and all this crap. What they were doing is using it to inflate the price of gold to hide the fact that someone's gone and bought all the bloody aluminium. And it's the aluminium they're spraying.
Oh, also.
So these conspiracies that we're seeing are cover stories. They're using conspiracy to increase the price of gold. They want to increase the price of gold because they want to dilute the increase in silver and the increase in aluminium price. Just look at the price of aluminium. It skyrockets out the blue. Yeah. Closely followed by a fuel shortage. Where's all the fuel gone? Why did the price of fuel go up?
I mean,
who needs all the fuel?
I remember in 2020 the price of copper going up because I'm in that industry and a lot of other metals.
Alchemy.
Yes, I'm alchemist part-time. But, the story is, well, that's supply chain, The world was shut down, and so demand, because it wasn't just metals. The bag, you know, you couldn't get a bag of plaster if you wanted to skim out a bedroom. You know.
Yeah. Like I've got a friend that works in one of the big London hospitals, and while they were running stories on the BBC saying it run out of PPE, he was standing in the warehouse of the hospital looking at crates and crates and crates full of PPE.
I can believe that. There was so much dodgy dealing going on as well, and we've seen that. Who's that? Michelle Mone, is it? She's
one that's been made public, isn't it?
A Tory peer. But I mean, shit, that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah,
there was that much cheap money, our money, sloshing about, being sold to the highest, dirtiest bidder to supply a load of shit. You know, people were setting up companies left, right, and centre to get on the bandwagon. There's massive gravy train coming. We're borrowing £500 billion. It's going on the never, never for our grandkids. Who wants a piece?
Can't believe I missed
one,
out on
one
that
issue is,
bandwagon.
if what I'm saying is right, and all these politicians and government are all involved in this cover story, the question I've got is, would that explain why there's zero accountability?
To who? To the political class?
Yeah, so anyone that's you know, involved in these sort of COVID vaccine pandemic wrongdoings, assuming the pandemic and the COVID vaccines and the injuries and all of the sickness and all the PCR is all part of the cover story for geoengineering, would that explain why there's zero accountability to any of these people that have done those wrongs? Because those wrongs are actually just, you know, part of the process of hiding what's going on here.
I don't think it's that complicated, Dan. I think it's just that the system stinks. It reeks, and it always has done. And, you know, the people will say, well, they will get the comeuppance in May this year because we'll have an election. Yay! That'll make all the difference when we get the next lot of twats in.
And this geoengineering tells you, it shows you one thing, that we're already living in a one world government scenario because it's a global geoengineering operation.
Do you think this, because, you know, the nonsense kicked off in China. So, I mean, how does that play into your narrative? What happened with China and the lockdown there? And that?
It's a genius move, isn't it? Because you say, well, there is no people. COVID's replaced the flu. Everyone says, oh, come off it. You're taking the piss. It hasn't replaced the flu. It is the flu. And then all the conspiracy guys say, oh, no. It was released out of a biolab. And the government say, no, of course it wasn't. Of course it wasn't. And just as all the truth movement say, yeah, look, there is no COVID. It's all bullshit. The government say, oh, actually, yeah, we did accidentally fuck up, and that has come out of the biolab. And all the truthments say, yeah, see, I told you so. We're mugs, absolute mugs. It's just all these truth guys are more akin to the sheep they say they're not. Yeah, they have played everyone lock, stock, and barrel. And what they've done is they've rewarded some of the truth movement as they're buying into this bullshit. Because what they're saying is, here's more kind of conspiracy and cover story that we want you to put out there. But as you start buying into more of it, guess what you're doing? You're raising your vibration. You're moving to 4G. You're resonating up. It's wholesale nonsense. Yeah, what they're doing is they're literally treating you like a seal, and they're throwing fish at you to get you clapping. Yeah. Now, the more fish you eat and the more people you tell down the pub about this stuff, the more you think you're rising above it and raising your frequency, the more you're lapping it up. So you've got these guys, and a lot of them are bots I'm seeing now. What I'm saying on my Twitter, and I'm testing the water on this, is I'm saying, look, I think some of these supposed vaccine side effects might actually be coming from the geoengineering. And there's bots on there that are saying, no, you're people like you are dangerous. You're controlled opposition. This is absolutely 100% the vaccine. What's the modus operandi there? What's the motivation? Yeah, some of these accounts have never commented on any of my posts before. And yet the minute you say, actually, it might be the vax, might not be the vax, they're like, bang, on it straight away, within seconds.
Yeah,
and then you see it astroturfed.
Now,
and like I say, the tell here, yeah. What I'm doing with my Twitter account is I'm cross-examining the Wizard of Oz. because these bots are like the Wizard of Oz's flying monkeys. If you nail one of them little bastards down and start asking them the questions, yeah, it will soon reveal a trail of breadcrumbs back to the wizard. So what you're seeing in these bots is the modus operandi of what's really going on here. Yeah. And these bots are completely controlled. A lot of these bot accounts have got maybe 30 followers.
Yeah.
You know, I found one the other day, had 125. It was following 125 people. The account had been set up in 2012 and it had 0 followers. You know, like as if that's a real person. And then on the flip side, you're seeing other accounts with maybe 4 or 5 that are very much up to their neck in trust the plan and all this stuff. And, you know, they're the ones jumping on it going, no, you must be like controlled opposition. What you're trying to do is dilute the vaccine injuries and say that the vaccines are safe and effective because it's not the geoengineering. And what you're trying to do is say it's geoengineering because you're trying to dilute the vaccine injuries. Bullshit. They can fuck off. Yeah. The reality is that every country has run a story trying to get ahead of them getting caught out. You know, there's reports saying that maybe 40% of the vaccines were a placebo. And there's stories in every country saying that there was a case where they'd injected saline solutions into people. Every country, without exception.
We had one recent. Was it a nurse in Germany who got arrested? That was one story that leaked out, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And she got arrested.
And so if any, here's a thought, right? Let's go back to my suspicion. If you're running, so you down the aircraft for 3 months, you round everyone up, take a PCR swab, and that tells you the level of toxicity that's in their nasal cavity. You then put the planes back in the sky. Knowing that it's potentially toxic, you then implement face masks. You then put blue dots all over the pavement that you look down on, saying social distance. You then go into every town all over the country and you rearrange the town layout, keep people distracted. Yeah. You then gradually increase your geoengineering activity from July 2020 onwards up to the year 2100, that being the year that's clearly stated in these documents. As people get sick, you need to find a way of explaining what that sickness is. As people are perfectly healthy, you need to find a way of getting those perfectly healthy people to take a PCR swab. Surprise, surprise, asymptomatic people with no health issues at all went and took a PCR swab on the suspicion that their perfect health might kill granny. You see Midazolam Matt's story, you see the increase in the spike in deaths in April. Guess where you don't see that spike in deaths echoed? In the data for deaths and in the data for burials and cremations. That spike isn't in it.
Where's that from, Dan? Is it like...
On the honest, if you could find the data for burials and cremations that's been asked for in FOIA requests, the April 2020 spike, supposedly caused by a midazolam mat, doesn't manifest itself in the data for burials and cremations in the same period. Right. You've got the truth movement saying, I don't trust the government are liars. Don't trust any of the government. But they do trust the statistics put out by the government to show a spike in death. Yeah. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I don't trust the government, but I do trust the government on the data. You can't say the government are lying, wholesale lying, the pandemic's bullshit. But I know they killed everyone in these hospitals because there's government data showing. If the government decided to kill people in hospitals, do you think they'd really show that in a bloody chart?
Well, what's not the...
come on, guys, like join the fucking dots here. People need to start waking up. If the government set out to murder Granny by allowing Matt Hancock to go and buy a ton of midazolam, yeah, do you think they'd really then publish that data in the ONS? Probably. Of course they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't. You wouldn't run a genocide and then run it up the bloody flagpole.
I don't know. Maybe you're underestimating, or you're
No,
overestimating
I'm not
the
underestimating
public.
them. Yeah,
Because
this is wholesale psyopathy. Yeah, this is a psychological operation from start to finish that they put the regulation in place for in 2009, 2011 and 10, knowing that they were going to do this. They were running research and development programs on the spraying from 1930, and they've been playing with it. In 2020, they knew they needed to roll out a large-scale geoengineering operation. And what I suspect is one of these geoengineering experiments has gone tits up somewhere. That's what's happened. Some bugger somewhere has run a geoengineering operation and they've broken nature. And now they're in it too deep.
what's your rationale for that? Why do you think nature's been broken? What's your evidence for that?
Because they suddenly needed to do this. Like Ben said, well, why would they do this?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So going back,
this is the attempts to hide this are bigger than the Manhattan Project. Yeah, and we're living through it and we're seeing what's going on. We know they've been running these geoengineering experiments, right? We know they were looking to regulate it. We know that the patents exist. We know someone somewhere is doing this real time. If that's gone wrong and it's broken natural weather cycles, now you're in it too deep. Yeah, now you've got to then carry on. So in terms of like Ben's mentioned earlier, well, what's the business plan? Imagine the business plan. We fund a little bit of, we put £100 million into some geoengineering operations, knowing that we can geoengineer the weather, we can modify the weather, and we can also fuck it up. What we do is we use the 100 million to fuck it up. We then use the billions and billions and billions after that to say we're trying to unfuck it.
Yes, we use the fuck up to justify more R&D, more spending.
Problem, reaction, solution. Simple stuff.
Well, I don't know.
So then you see major truth accounts like Gareth Icke, for example, who's always walking around in the countryside, surprise, surprise, with his selfie stick, surprise, surprise, under the chemtrails, literally ignoring them. Until I stick it on Twitter that he's ignoring them, then literally the next day he goes out and talks about chemtrails. Riddle me that.
He's too busy looking for lizards.
Exactly. Exactly. He wants to be a Lanzarote, really, if he's looking for that. See what? Do you get the gist of what I'm saying, though, chaps? Come on, this is like engaged brain time. We're all being played, and we're being played to hide something else.
I think that was a really interesting point you made about not trusting, I don't trust the government, but I will buy all this statistics coming out of the ONS, which,
exactly.
Naeem, what's he called? Zahawi. He was the founder of the ONS. He was Chancellor briefly, Home Secretary, I think.
Yeah.
And that's why there's zero accountability. And if you really want to ham it up and create cover for it all, you stick the bugger on I'm a Celebrity Jungle, whatever it's called. Get me out of the jungle. That'll really boost the conspiracy. Yeah, which allows us to hide the geoengineering. Yeah, that I'm an athlete. I'm pretty healthy. I've developed nasal polyps. I can't smell. Lost my smell. Developed asthma. Struggling to breathe. Not had the vaccine. Not had COVID.
Wow.
What's going on?
I've never heard of nasal polyps before. I've heard of throat ones. Singers getting like larynx polyps. I've never heard of nasal polyps before. Yeah.
Polyps caused by inflammation.
Right.
These autoimmune diseases, etc. Yeah. So your nasal cavity will just fill up. You feel like you're congested. Blah blah blah. And then you're giving cortisone to reduce the symptoms of that. But because of that, you start following these little Facebook groups. And I'm following the Facebook groups against the weather. And when they're spraying it, guess what you see in these nasal polyp Facebook groups? Oh, my symptoms are really bad today.
Wow.
Funny that.
It's weird. In 2021, I got an autoimmune condition. And I've never had a single health problem in my life. I've always been perfectly healthy. And then I got an eyeball autoimmune thing. And I had to have steroids just completely out of the blue. And it cleared up after a few months, but it's like, what the fuck?
Talk to the vets, mate. Talk to the vets. How many people have got dogs that developed allergies? You know, there's so many people I know. You take your dog out and they're like, oh, your little patch has had a nightmare in the last 6 months. He's got all this rash come out on him. The poor little sod's running around in the grass. Guess what else they've done? Whatever increased this geoengineering activity. They've stopped the farmers growing. Now, if you're spraying crap into the air, it's going to make all the fields toxic. Would it make sense to then curb back the food chain and not grow in those conditions?
Right. Yes.
Would it also make sense to pay farmers to rest their fields?
Yeah.
Joining the dots yet?
Yeah, and we had the grain shortage in Eastern Europe as well, which the war was the cover story.
Funny that. Now, obviously, you've got all these truth accounts smashing out these farmer protests, and someone's organising that. Let's all organise a protest on geoengineering and see how far that gets, shall we? Yeah, it will get stopped immediately.
I could just imagine like 6 people in a village pub shouting.
Sounds nice.
Yeah.
Let's start one.
But it's not though, is it? Because millions of people, like, it's getting so obvious. The weatherman's having to explain away bizarre clouds.
I saw
they've just invented
week.
10 new types of clouds that we hadn't seen as kids, but apparently they've always been there.
I saw this story this week. 12 new cloud formations.
Can you name them? The exam's next week.
No, but one was like an Anthropocene cumulus or something. It was like this is the name for a man-made cloud. We call it now. It's like a big long tubular thing.
It's off the scale propaganda. You know, when they told you the flu disappeared and we all bought it, it just lined us all up for, you know, what was coming next. You know, it's, when you know what they're doing, you know where they're going with it, and they're going with this until 2100. Yeah, we're at the early stages of a global operation. They don't know what the symptoms or side effects were going to be. They don't know what they are, yeah, which is why they kept ducking and diving with COVID variants. You know, this compound has screwed everyone up today. Shit, let's invent a new variant, yeah? As they're spraying people, guess what they did? They made them queue up outside in the sunlight. And they also allocated all of those people a batch number under the pretext they were getting vaccines. And then what they did is they rerun the same spraying experiment 2 months later when they invited the same people to come back and stand underneath the same experiment again. And then when those people left, they gave them a little form, yeah? And that little form said, if you've got any symptoms or side effects, file the information on the yellow card reporting system. This is chemical, it isn't chemical warfare. This is not warfare. You know, this is toxins are spraying in the air to block out the clouds. They've got no idea how it's going to work, what it's going to do to people. And they've lined people up en masse outside the towns, stuck a batch number on them, like Jews in Auschwitz, were barcoded, and then sent them home with a little form to say, fill in your symptoms on the yellow card reporting system. You know, they all go away and get sick. Yeah, they immediately think, oh, it's the side effect of the vaccine.
Yeah,
it's not the side effect of the vaccine.
Well,
it's geoengineering operations, and this is what they're doing. And then what they're doing is repeating the operation, bringing you back a second time, repeating the operation, bringing you back a third time, bringing you back a fourth time, because we're the generation they're experimenting on to take this up to the year 2100.
Well, I just saw a news article today that they're talking, the JCVI is talking about the spring booster campaign. So maybe stay indoors and when that happens. Anyway,
the whole thing is insane. I got, to be frank, all I'm doing is looking at the dots here and the cover stories, looking at things in the truth movement, saying, well, if you can't, you know, how can you trust government statistics on the one hand, then not trust them on the next hand?
Yeah.
How can you say the government lie? But by the way, they've openly committed a genocide and they've reported their own statistics on it. Oh, but at the same time, they're completely corrupt and they lie to us. It's like, so they lie to you about one thing, but when they commit a genocide, they tell you they've done it. And the other thing they say is, well, they have to tell you what they've done, don't they? I can't remember them sending a mailer out to everyone in Hiroshima before they pulled the pin on that. Can you?
No, good point.
Or Nagasaki.
Yeah, that's so they just cry revelation of the method, don't they? Oh, they have to tell us. Why?
The reason they're saying they have to tell us, it isn't because they have to tell us. What they're doing is they're doing it, creating these cover stories, and then legitimizing the cover stories by publishing post-dated or backdated documents or government statistics or papers and things like that. And just as they're doing that, guess what else they bring out and push through YouTube? The Mandela effect. So if you've never seen those papers before, knowing that they're backdating them, the Mandela effect explains it. And of course, all this is, going on because as you're getting confused by all this stuff, you think, your frequency is changing and humanity is changing and waking up. And all they're doing is rewarding you that the more you lap up their nonsense, which is wholesale designed to hide the geoengineering, the more enlightened you become. Until you're really vibrating on all cylinders, that so much so that you look like you've just walked out of Van Summers.
I'm ready to ascend.
They are literally on the wind up. They are literally seeding nonsense out there to hide what's going on. It is, like, I hope anyone who's watching this is getting the message. And no doubt there are people going, well, you're only saying that because you're controlled opposition. Bullshit. If I was controlled opposition, I'd be on the BBC saying this, or I'd be on all of the, the big truth channels.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I'd be on Dellingpod's channel. Yeah. I'd be on the Ike's channels immediately. Yeah, I'd be on all of the accounts with like 4, 5, 6, 700,000 followers that just miraculously grew as these cover stories grew.
Are you saying
look at Dr. John Campbell? He's got a big poster in the background that's a big blue sky that says, there's subliminal messaging. The NHS poster, blue sky, rainbow, 2 white clouds on it. The CDC logo, blue sky, full of white lines in the background. Clap the NHS. Where'd you go and do that? Where you go outside?
Dan, we've blown over an hour already. I could listen to you talk about this shit all night. It's very entertaining.
You like me being controversial
informative. Anyway. You what?
You like me being controversial?
Yeah, that's fine. Hopefully, we'll have a YouTube channel for part 2 coming up in 10 minutes. But
it's sketchy.
Don't care. Hey,
what's left of it?
We've got a clean bill of health. It's fine. I just hope they don't take it down. But
now that's my take on it. I'd like to know what you guys think. Whether that's just batshit crazy.
Hey,
a little.
I think it's batshit crazy. I'll go out there.
You're going to go on a limb.
On a limb. Can I say as well, Dan, you remind me so much of Nathan Barley. I don't know if you've seen that show from about 20 years ago. It's not an insult. I think it's amazing, but I just wanted to highlight.
Nathan Barley?
Nathan Barley, yeah.
I'll have to Google it.
You can watch it. It's an old comedy. Yeah.
We should edit in a clip.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
If I'd have known, I would have done. Yeah. Well, Dan, this has been fab. People should follow you on Twitter if they use it, and keep up to date on the spraying and shit, and the astroturf.
Just look up, just pick a spot, walk the dog, stand in the field, watch a lion being laid down. The skies are clear at the moment.
By the dog.
A lion being led.
What have you got?
Mine, he tends to
take the goldfish out for a walk.
He tends to curl them off more than lay a line down.
Gross.
What have you got, Ben? What pets have you got?
I've got a cocker spaniel. So yeah, she does lay lines of turd.
Shit.
But you've only got to look up. The sky is clear today. This thing is what they're doing is cyclical. They let it clear, the temperature drops. They then gradually over the next 2 or 3 days, you'll really start seeing the pictures coming in via Twitter and Telegram of all these people spotting it. The French are particularly awake to this because, it's quite an outdoors nation, lots of cycling, lots of skiing. In south of France, lots of surfing, windsurfing, etc. They absolutely know what's going on. people like windsurfers notice the difference in the wind. But just pick, when you see one of these big lines, just watch it and watch how long it takes for another aircraft to come over and another one. It's one of these things, this that, you know, kind of I'm sort of saying people need to see this, you can't miss it. I didn't see this for a long time. I noticed it through 2020 when it really ramped it up. But, you know, it has been going on a lot longer, less so in Britain, more than other countries. But when you really go back through this stuff, you see how prevalent it is. And it's the only thing that a lot of the big truth accounts don't talk about. And I find that suspicious. You know, if you believe the royal family is a shape-shifting lizard, or you know, the Queen was a shape-shifting lizard, and you're walking around in the countryside and you're not looking up saying like, this is just crazy, there's something's wrong. You know, it's really wrong. Like you're clearly not acknowledging or observing the obvious, and when you see it, you can't not see it. Like I say, I stood in the field, head teacher of a private school. He originally thought it was exhaust fumes, i.e. diesel burnt, fuel burnt, whatever, you know, fuel it is coming out the back of these aircraft. He had no idea that it was a condensation response, hot engine hitting cold air, which is absolutely what condensation trails are. And then as we were talking, we was probably talking for about half hour, he stopped me halfway through the conversation. He said, look, when you first said this, I thought you was crazy. He said, but you've shown me that the government are regulating it. And while we've been talking, I've literally seen them make a cloud. I've seen 5 of these trails go over, layer it up, and that's now dispersed and it's become a cloud. And he said, if I looked at that patch of sky now, I would just think it was a long, thin cloud that's maybe, you know, 10 miles wide, perhaps 60 miles long.
Yeah.
You know, this guy's a head teacher of private school.
Look to the skies, folks.
Look up.
Everyone can do it. Just go up and start paying attention. Because if we don't do it, do we? We're busy. But, you know, maybe we should make an effort.
Well, we are. This is the thing. And if you're outside all the time, like there's a guy on Twitter who's a, you know, a professional falcon flyer, flies these falcons for a living.
New hobby.
And he's like, this is just crazy. Seeing it every day.
Yeah.
Every day. When you're out there with birds, not those birds, the feathered birds, and you know what looks right and what doesn't. Like, just take a picture the next few days, go outside, take a picture, go through your photo album on your phone and look for photos that have got these trails in it. Look on Instagram, like every single cycling photo, every running photo, every skiing photo has got crosses and hashtags all over the sky in the back of it. Go to your own skiing, cycling, surfing photos from 10 years ago, and you won't see any of that.
Yeah. Well, Dan, we've blown over an hour. We've got to wrap this up. But fantastic. We should come back again. Maybe not wait a year next time or however long it was, but
yeah,
love to have you back.
Let me come back when you guys have looked up.
Caught up. We'll
Caught up and looked up.
You two can look up. I'm still looking for bodies. I'm going to dig some bodies up.
And of course, the caveat here is, you know, I could be completely wrong, schizophrenic, losing my mind. Yeah. So, you know, other people do this, but you know, I know what I'm seeing. I know how the weather's changing. Other people are observing the same. Big groups are forming that are sharing these pictures, and hardly any of these big truth accounts are talking about that. And that can only be by design.
Well, good one. Right. On that note, we'll let you go, Dan. It's been fab. And
cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Cheers, Dan.
Have a nice rest of your Sunday. You lot watching live, we'll be back in 10-15 minutes. We're going to open the phone lines.
Yeah, man.
Maybe you want to call in and talk about chemtrails. What you make of what Dan's been telling us, you know.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Have a good one, Dan. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. See you later.
See you later.
Okay, guys.
Take care. Bye.